I hear Harlan.
Hey, I'm here, guys. What's up?
Hey, what's going on, Harlan?
Yeah, yeah. Well, not the tobacco. So,
Holy cow, man. If you're playing Risk Arbitrage, you're just like hiding under your desk right now. Wow. That was
yeah.
unbelievable. Un-
Don't fight the tape,
are you picking
And
bottoms in the
that's that.
tobacco here, or are you just laying off?
Not at all. There's just nothing there for me. So I'm just not, anytime you get a big move, you might as well just step aside, let it digest that first and, then decide what you're going to do. It's kind of like,
What?
what was that one? BlackRock you were talking about? Be okay.
Yeah, BlackRock breaking out to new all-time highs. Is that something you been playing?
Well, see, that's just it. Here you're getting a big spike up, and it's like, well, do I really want to chase it? Considering a few days ago it was at 315. So, there's your pullback. Let them come to you. That's what I'm doing. I mean, BlackRock's an excellent example. Look at it look at everything in June. It spikes up, and then guess what? Let the dust settle, and it pulls back, and there's your entry. So, it's the bunny hop. Two
How?
forward, one back. Wait for the one back.
Okay. All right. Market bumping up against all-time highs here. Recent high from yesterday was 76 and a quarter. We have the all-time high at 78 and a quarter. And what's interesting here, Harlan, is we are trading up $8 in the pre-market, eight handles, and it just doesn't look like it wants to give it back at all.
Yeah, and that may not be, at least for the open. So, it's the reaction. And obviously the gap up is creating that reaction. So, let's see what happens after an hour or two in the market. Because if I'm not mistaken, the E's are going to open up where? Around 1980-ish. So, if you look at the S&P, if the S&P is going to, pop up here at the open, how much more upside do you have to a retest of its recent highs? About 5 points. From the open, assuming everything stays up. So, you're so close to a resistance level here. It looks kind of choppy and sloppy in the overall market, at least with the indexes. I mean, since the first of the month, it's been a kind of a chop fest. You've been having a hard time making headway in the indexes. And if you're going to, gap up, I mean, we gapped up the other day, and what did it do? It turned around, gave it right back. So it's just kind of sloppy in the indexes here in the short term. And, you're closer to a resistance. So, let them pull back and, look for names that are in clearly defined uptrends pulling back off their highs versus having to chase this stuff and feeling like you're late to the party.
And did you have any problems navigating yesterday's trading? We were up right at this level, and as far I would say, Auntie Jeanette started talking, and we had the big spike down. Bulls come rearing back. Did you get shaken out of any positions, or were you able to hang with it?
No, the only thing I really did on strength was I peeled out of a little bit of my Facebook.
Okay.
So, Facebook came down, hit the 50-day moving average, trend channel support, and then it, popped right back up to those highs around 68-ish. And I said, you know what? At least in the short term, that's a resistance level. So, I'm going to peel out a little bit because we buy support and we sell resistance. So I sold resistance.
Yeah, see, I
Can't
good
really
call.
see it on.
Yeah, I mean,
You can't
68.
really see it on this chart.
Well, 68.17, your high on Monday, 68.09, the high on Tuesday. Only one closed at 67.90. So, using that area for resistance point is a pretty good call there. We'll see trading up today a little bit in the pre-market, but after two sessions in a row, you really got to respect that $68 level. Getting some questions in the chat room about some credit card companies. COF, Charter One Financial. Could you give us your opinion on that, Harland? As it comes up to resistance here, perhaps all-time highs for this yesterday. It hit 85.39. Is this one a little frothy for you?
Well, again, I'm a pullback guy in a clearly defined uptrend, and this thing has just been, for the most part, trending its way higher, higher highs, higher lows, within a channel off of the since the beginning of June. So, as long as it's trending higher like this, line up your bottoms off of the beginning of June. That's its trend channel support. So the trend is your friend, and as long as that trend is in motion, if you own it, you stay with it. If it breaks its uptrend, it could head out down to the 50-day moving average. So your risk here is a pullback could take it down to $80, and then an $85 stock. Percentage-wise, it's not that great of a big hit if it pulls back to the 50-day, but the 50-day support anyway.
And is that going up? So you're suggesting, perhaps just moving a trailing stop up here and not trying to pick a top.
Yeah, trail and scale.
Okay. All right. How about
keep trailing your stops, and as long as it's in motion, you just kind of stay with it.
And how about Discovery Financial, since we're sticking in the credit card sector? Similar chart here. It looks like we might be getting a little tired at this 63.50 level, trading up in the pre-market. We spiked right up to that level. Are you looking at that 63.57 as resistance, or we get a potential breakout today?
What's the symbol on Discovery? I'm on a delay time.
DISCA.
That's it. DIS.
You can look at DISC or DISCA, but or DISCB or DISCA. DISCA is the common one, I think, the one that trades more.
DISCA. That's Discovery. Yeah. Discovery Communications.
Yeah, and it's popping here, obviously, off of the Time Warner News.
Okay, we were talking, Dennis, about Discovery Financial.
Oh, sorry. This is what happens when you jump in, actually. You said Discovery. I figured you're talking. This is what happens when you get off the call. Actually, my internet dropped on me on this one computer, only on one computer, the one the Skype call was on. It's like Skype is jinxed for me right now. But anyways, that's what happens when you pop into the middle of a conversation.
All right.
Okay, so we decide we're just talking.
Same thing. I mean, look at Discover Financial. I mean, you see those lows in the middle of June. That's your trend line. Line up the lows ever since. Higher highs, higher lows. So, as long as it's in a short-term channel here, you pretty much just stay with it.
Yeah, and if you really
chasing it up here, but it's in an uptrend. It's not a big screamer. So,
no, and if you,
but it's working.
You could probably draw, I mean, if you're going to draw a trend line there on the bottom, you could probably get a pretty nice trend line going across some highs too. If you maybe connect the 62.28 high, then coincided with, let's see, that high that you had at 63.33, at the top of the chart there, you could draw a trend line, and that resistance probably wouldn't come in and maybe until the $65 level. So if you're looking at that channel on the bottom, perhaps looking at it at the top too.
Absolutely, and that's what you need to do. We do that every day.
Oh, really?
With all of the charts. Oh, yeah, because it's a channel. I mean, that whole channel, you line up your lows and you line up your tops and you draw your trend lines. That's the trend channel that defines that uptrend. So it's just a great tool because, when we talk about how stocks will spike on news or they'll gap up or they'll go on a run for 3, 4, 5 days, you think, wow, this is really great. But if you draw a trend channel resistance, meaning line up your tops, you'll say, you know what, you're at the top of that trend channel. You may not see resistance when you look at a chart from left to right, but if you look at a chart from the lower left to the upper right, LLUR, you're going, this is trend channel resistance. I don't care what the news is. I'm not buying it. So it helps keep you out of stocks too by using trend channels.
Yeah, and also when you get a stock that hasn't traded in this area for quite some time, what else? I mean, you don't have to use. This is not like a steadfast hard rule to sell the top of the channel. But besides average daily ranges and something off a trend line, there's really not much else to use. Now I know you're not going to like this chart here of Michael Kors, but boy, yeah, I know you would say this one's broken. It's got to be way behind its way below its 200-day. How would you approach the stock? What would make you think that it was, that at least was found a short-term bottom?
Gosh, there's a bunch of, where's it in pre-market? There's a bunch of stuff down in
trading down again
level.
here. Another downgrade on the stock today. The analysts just keep ganging up on this stock. William Blair ganging up on it this morning.
Yeah, it's hanging around at 79.44. So, you're starting to get into that 74 to 76, 78 zone from back in January. So, but look at all that overhead supply. Everything. Just draw a line across 86. You're not going anywhere near that. So I think there's better places to put your money. Don't fight the tape. Don't try and pin a bottom because, the low can go lower. And I think there's better places to put your money than to sit there and, deal with a bottom fisher in a pattern that's just, ugly.
And
so only the best and forget the rest.
Here's an interesting chart of is High Crush Partners, HCLP. You're probably going to like this one. You had the run up to the high and then the nice pullback and the rounding bottom here. Was this something that showed up on your radar?
It did. I would have liked to have seen it pull back off its highs a little bit more. I mean, it was looking really nice, and then yesterday, boom, it spiked. I've been watching it. I would have liked that pullback off its, 67-inch range off its highs. It kind of pulled back closer over time to the 50-day, but, apparently not. You can kind of see there were two entries. This is one of those names where if you chase it up in the beginning of June, all you had to do is wait, and then all of a sudden you got a, boom, 3 or 4 day pullback and off to the races again. This is the same thing. You hit a peak at the beginning of July, pulled back off highs, boom, here you go. Who else looks like this? FANG, F-A-N-G. So if you look at, nice looking chart.
Okay, I see that here. It did have the nice orderly sell-off from 92, and now you're finding support here. Yesterday's low, 82.71. Also had a low going back a few sessions at 82.82 here. So will you wait for it to come back down under 83, or is this something that you're comfortable nibbling in the lower 83s if it gets there, and then leaning on those lows, that 82.71 low as a potential exit point?
Well, you got the 50-day moving average at 80.89, so call it 81. So that tends to act as a floor. Issues that are above the 50-day, they tend to stay above the 50-day, and the flip side is when they're below it, they tend to stay below it. But here you have a stock since first of the year, clearly defined uptrend, and all it's doing here for the past month or two, past month is pulling back off its highs in a clearly defined uptrend. So if you're a trend trader, you just line up your lows off of the January lows, and that support, that trend line support, pretty much comes in close to the 50-day moving average. So, and if you break the 50 days, you're going back to that April, May, about 76 level. So, you don't have a lot of downside, if something were to occur. But, I like it. If you wanted to pick it off here and you say, all right, where's my stop? Well, if it breaks the 50-day, you could stop out of it. So, what's your risk when you define it that way? A couple of points on an $80 stock. That's pretty good risk management if you look at it that way.
Harlan,
so
I got to get your
energy you're doing it.
I was just going to say, I got to get your overall thoughts here on the overall market, because here we are, as you've been talking, we're approaching these all-time highs. All-time high in the S&P futures, 1978.25. We are a buck away from there, only a point away. We're up 9 points here now. Do you think with all the mergers of talk that today, the Apple IBM deal, that it's going to just bump us through and we're just going to be on the road to 2000? What are your thoughts here on the overall market?
Well, I look at the NASDAQ comp a lot because that's where all the growth stocks are. And, I'm looking at it. We got that big slam off of the post-fireworks show. And, you're looking at it peaked out there right after the 4th of July. You got slammed, and all you're doing here is snapping right back up. And, I'm not saying you're going to go into a, full-blown, roll them over. But when I look at that, it just reminds me in the short term here what we saw in March, at the beginning of March, with the NASDAQ. You hit a peak, you pull back, and then you do a snapback rally, which is what we're doing. We hit a peak, pulled down to 43.50-ish, and here we are snapping back. So right now, resistance is, a retest of the highs. The same thing on the S&P 500. So, here you are. You're going to be right back at resistance if it goes higher. Okay, well, I can line up my tops here and, maybe, 1990-ish on the S&P, but is that 5 points really going to be worth it when you have a choppy and sloppy market? So, I'm just a little cautious when I see the indexes here. It looks pretty choppy and sloppy. It hasn't been a cakewalk since first of the month. But then again, look where you came from just going into the first of this month. So I'm just going to call it range-bound trade here. But I think it's a market of stocks, and there's something out there for everyone. And, you just got to look for the names that fit your style and discipline.
Okay. All right. Harlan, thanks for your outlook on the market. We got a couple stocks here that on a potential pullback that we can take a look at, identifying the overhead resistance as well, and got a new trick here for trying to find resistance with these trend channels. We're always buying the support and looking at how the lows line up, but got a good cue here and lining up the top. So Harlan, thanks for coming on. As usual, we'll love your take on the market. Have a good trading day, and we'll speak to you next week.
You betcha. Thanks, guys. See you later.
Thanks, Harlan.